Is autism an excuse for bad behaviour? Interesting. Sometimes some people can use autism as an excuse for being perhaps a little bit dissatisfactory in the way that they approach things and what they say about people. So I think it would be a good video for us to take a look at, sort of dispel this myth of autistic benevolence, as you might call it. Let's have a look. There's a little bit of an Easter egg at the start that you'll probably like as well.
I can see some of you reaching for the comment section early. Could I ask you instead to hold fire until the end? I feel like this is such an important, nuanced topic that it deserves at least watching the video first. The whole thing, please, thank you. And it is not clickbait. Autistic people can be ass too. Sorry, 1 second.
Wait, did you say asshole?
I did, Thomas. I certainly did. Let me explain. There's a common trope of happy disabled people that's overused in stories and in media. It portrays individuals with disabilities as being perpetually positive and, dare I say, inspirational. It's often used in media to evoke certain emotions in their audience. This is problematic as it tends to simplify and overlook the complex experiences of disabled people and the challenges that they face daily. A disability rights advocate, Stella Young, coined the phrase inspiration porn, which really does sum it up. It reminds me of...
Is anyone else experiencing some kind of audio disturbance? Thank you, Leonotius, for joining the Auti Legion, my friend. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that's a very small icon. It's a bit bigger. Thank you, my friends. Did you know you were in his video? Yes, I did, yeah. I haven't watched this video on this video yet, though. No, it's right. Inspiration corn is definitely a difficult thing to tackle, especially in the mainstream media. It's kind of phrased as... I remember there was this one time that I did an interview for a local newspaper, and I was talking about my experiences as an autistic adult. Basically, I was talking about my experiences as an athlete, because it was like following, so I think it was following the Commonwealth, and the title of that article, I didn't have any say in the title, but the title was something like Harrogate boy battles autism, something like that. You know, I don't know, but I mean, inspiration corner is definitely like a very complex, nuanced thing. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but generally it can be sort of summed up for like basically using autistic people to inspire other people for doing like normal things that most people do, to make themselves feel better. I don't know if that's the best way of explaining it, but there's a lot of different ways that it can sort of pan out in the mainstream media. Thomas, you're grooming Honey Bunny fool? Yeah. But yeah, no, it is an issue because you're not really highlighting autistic people or sort of including them in the actual talk. You're just using them as kind of like an experiential thing to sort of have people on this kind of awe factor that people want, so people can go, oh, it's like similar to what Meg was talking in the video that we watched about love on the spectrum. It's that kind of awe factor that people use autistic people as. Whereas when it comes to actually speaking about the intricacies and the actual facts and the science and the experiences of autism, they tend to get on professionals to do that, which is not the best way to go about it. But it does happen a fair bit.
Of how villains are often played by men with deep British accents. This trope is harmful for a number of reasons, but the one that we're going to explore today is how autistic people are often seen by neurotypicals to be using autism as an excuse for poor behaviour. Something a little like this. There is a seemingly never-ending stream of discussion online about how autistic people use autism as an excuse for their behaviour. Like, some sort of A card, which can be displayed to excuse all manner of things, from being untidy and neglecting chores to relationship drama and emotional and sometimes physical violence too.
I think this is a very complex one because, like, to some degree, depending on the individual, depending on their traits, depending on the circumstances, like, some things could be better understood through the lens of autism, explaining certain things. I think the problem comes in when you try to apply it to like things that the autistic person knows and understands. Like, if you're like being mean to someone, if you're like bullying someone, it's not like because it's because you're autistic that you're doing that. It doesn't work like that. But there are some circumstances where it can be perhaps a little bit more complex to understand. Like, perhaps when I was teaching, there might be a student who hits another student but doesn't realize that they've actually hurt them, and that's not an okay thing to do. Particularly these individuals, sort of ASD 2, 3, sometimes ASD 1, to be honest. But they didn't really understand, they didn't really realize, and so it can kind of be better understood through the lens of autism. But I think it's a very circumstantial thing, and you've got to be very careful when you use autism as an excuse for stuff. Particularly even when you're talking about romantic confrontations, maybe someone might be upset at you because you didn't realize that they were feeling a certain emotion and you didn't do anything about it. But that's not really your fault, because most autistic people can find those situations quite difficult to navigate. So it's kind of an explanation in a sense for that, and so it might be a bit apt in that circumstance. But if you had to kind of, think about a situation where you are like verbally attacking somebody, and then, it gets a bit hazy, or you do something which is against the law, if you're aggressive, it's a difficult one. Because some people can use being autistic as an excuse for bad behaviour. It's true. I've seen it. However, I used to have a coworker who's also autistic, thought he shouldn't have to modify his thoughts before he spoke because he was autistic. Hopefully that's not controversial. He said so himself. I think that's a pretty nuanced situation, Bree. It's good to bring that up for sure. Let's see what Mike has to say. Autistic rage, yeah. I don't know, man. I think sometimes it can be somewhat hard to deal with emotions as an autistic person, but do I think that justifies your actions towards other people which are aggressive in nature? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it could explain parts of it, and but it definitely doesn't give you a free pass to do so, That's true. I might seem uncaring. Maybe people, if people don't know that I literally can't pick up on emotions. True. No matter your neurotype, you can't excuse abusive behaviour by your struggles. It may help you to understand yourself better and work on behaviours like this. Yeah, I think if someone is willing, like if it is something related to autism and the person is willing to take accountability for it and try and find ways to rectify it for future times, I think that's a good way to go about it. But it should never just be used as like sort of a free pass to say, well, actually, it's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong because I'm autistic. That's not how you go about it. Like, there's some greater degrees of nuance that is required in that situation.
We've spoken at length on the issues around the double empathy problem on this channel, a well-cited issue, explaining the disconnect between...
I think there's some issues with my headphones. I'm going to switch over to my other ones. Exactly, Thomas, nuance. Yeah.
Between the communication styles of autistic and allistic or non-autistic people, it's well understood in the scientific literature that autistic people can tend to be seen as antisocial and avoidant of social contact. But I thought we were the ones who were supposed to suffer from black and white thinking. I think the truth is more complex and nuanced than this. Neurotypical people can be bullies, and autistic people can be kind and thoughtful. But also, neurotypical people can be respectful, and autistic people can be nasty and hateful sometimes. Two Also,
Yes.
just because someone is autistic does not mean that they are a happy disabled person who never puts a foot wrong and, I don't know, farts rainbows.
I think that's a really good point, because it's like it's almost in line with this idea of infantilization, that we just don't have the capabilities to not do these bad things. It's just not true. Or like we're just somehow these like benevolent sort of angelic creatures who can't do anything wrong. It's just not true. I mean, like, you look at some of like the news and stories that are out there. There's some autistic people who do some pretty horrific things. Yeah. It's not related to your neurotype, to whether you're a good or bad person. You know, I perhaps a situation where might be a good sort of example would be sort of being sort of blunt and direct about things. Some people might see that as bad, like socially bad, you being sort of direct. But if you're wanting to advocate for yourself, being more direct and using a communication style that works better for you, it's not really a problem, you know, and it is kind of related to the way that you communicate as an autistic person. But likewise, if you are to, you know, think of something pretty horrible and just say it and just bluntly spurt it out and just not try and take some time to think about what you're saying first and just saying it and then just sticking by it, and then if people get upset at you, you say that it's because you're autistic. It doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. I think it's the reason why this stuff has come about, I believe. It's kind of like a counter movement to this old idea of, you know, you might see in particular sort of religious practices, or you might hear it. You might even hear it through science, where, you know, people thought that autistic people lacked empathy. Some religious practices sort of saw autistic people as being like devil children, you know, not the most favorable human beings. So in some sense, it's kind of like a counter. It's counter to that stigma, but it kind of goes the other way. It doesn't really sort of paint autistic people as just, you know, being human. And, you know, humans have the capabilities for doing both good and bad. And that's true. I have trouble with my emotions processing things. My parents think it's rage or anger. It's not, though. I don't mean to get worked up sometimes. I got really mad. I don't know why it happens. I think maybe that's might be something related to alexithymia, you know. It's not too bad, but thanks. Signing off now. We'll pick up this interesting video when I'm awake. No worries, Marianne. Thank you for joining us. Odette sends the devil emoji. Yes, mine has developed a lot of survival traits. His ego can be a bit inflated at times, but still feels remorse and guilt. Interesting. Jackie says, and his temper has never scared me. Interesting. I fart rainbows all the time. Very good. I can come across as cold to some people, but I try not to be nasty with people. Yeah. I think there's a large amount of nuance that's needed, but generally if you do something bad and it's like not something that you can control, I think you could say that it's possibly like someone else's interpretation of you. It really depends on the situations. It's so hard to think of situations where it's so clear cut, you know, because it's such a nuanced thing. But generally, if you are using autism to sort of pass up on taking accountability for things that you've done, which are negative and bad towards people, I think that's an issue, you know. But it's very nuanced, and I suppose it could be situations where, particularly when people are having meltdowns, which that might be a little bit different. It's very hard to know, you know. It's hard to give like a straight up answer. It's very, very, very complex.
We are all just human. This still isn't the full picture, and it also comes with serious problem. Neurotypical people can be assholes too. The Reddit case study. Am I the asshole for telling my sister that she can't blame everything on her autism? My sister, 24F, is currently going through the process in our country to get diagnosed with autism, the original poster writes. She believes she has it, and until she gets diagnosed with autism, I will continue to remind her that she doesn't have a diagnosis yet, and therefore isn't autistic. I'm sorry, what now? You don't receive autism from a clinician, that isn't how it spreads. Now,
I 100% agree with this. I'm gonna let him speak facts.
by the way, this is such a common belief, one that you have to be formally diagnosed to be accepted as autistic. On this channel, we support those who choose to self-identify. I think identify is a much better word than diagnosis, which has some disease connotations. Autism isn't like cancer. It isn't something that needs to be cured. But like diseases, you don't obtain them from a diagnosis. Any diagnosis is based on results of tests and symptoms from something that was already there in the first place. Anyway, let's carry on.
Yes, it's like being aware of it, you know. Psychologists don't give you autism. That's not how it works. They illuminate the autism that has existed within your soul since the start. Mrs. Bifflechips says, Doctor, I would like a prescription of 1 autism, please. Oh my god. You are not gay. The gay police have not arrested you yet. Oh my god. That's great. Kerb C says, people see it as bad when you tell them that they say something incorrect, so it's not entirely correct. Yes, yeah. That would be one of the nuanced things. 100%. Diagnosis is discovering that it's there. 100%. 100%.
She has been diagnosed with some mental health issues, such as depression and anxiety. Recently, at a family dinner, my sister was talking about how hard it is to have autism and how she's struggling to cope even though she doesn't have a job and never worked a day in her life. She then kept talking about how her autism explained some things, about how when she was a kid, the fact that she refused to go to school and she was very physical and volatile, trying to get her to get to school. She was often late to places if she had to go somewhere and so on. Autism, sadly, raises one's risk of co-occurring mental health conditions such.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Well done on getting over the social anxiety of doing the Zoom chat. My god, $20. Thank you so much, dudes. But I think, dude, feel free to correct me on the pronouns. It's just, I think from your profile picture, I'm not sure. Sorry. Thank you. That's lovely. Oh.
Such as depression and anxiety. Autism itself is not a mental health issue.
No.
I don't know any of the people in the story, so we can only go on these words, but I can relate to how the sister is responding to a late autism identification. It's very likely that she'll be looking back over her life as an undiagnosed autistic person. Autistic child.
And those things that they were talking about are like autistic experiences. Like, it's just true. I think there are a lot of people out there who get very, very upset when people self-diagnose and people think that they're autistic because they kind of apply it to this kind of like woke sort of Gen Z type agenda. I mean, we've talked about it so many times on the channel when we've looked at sort of reactionary content from outside of the community, but yeah, 100%. Can I order 3 autisms, please? Oh my god. It's a lot of bells and whistles, yet Marvin likes you, might leave you alone, Dave. It/he censors and hates me the most, Dave. There he goes. The stream pausing me, I hate YouTube Android app. It seems like other people experience that as well. I wonder why. Interesting.
Child, as an autistic teenager, as a young adult, and pondering the familiar questions. What if I'd known? Could I have advocated better for myself when I was younger? As for never having worked, I did make a video about the employment issues affecting autistic people. That is, autistic people are a very underemployed disability demographic. Second, most underemployed only to learning disabilities. That's intellectual disabilities in the US. Let's carry on. I decided to say something, and firstly, I reminded her that she doesn't have autism yet. And I said to her, even if she did get diagnosed with autism, that she can't blame everything on her autism, and mental health, like being physical or volatile as a child, and needs to accept responsibility and not lay it off like, oh, I got autism and I was physical and volatile as a child because of that. Okay. But she doesn't have autism
They're
yet.
also a child. They're a child. Like, I think that's also a pretty good pass for a lot of behaviour like that. You know, I mean, maybe not a pass, but an explanation. Really. Has anyone else thought of an experience quite like realising you're autistic later in life? I've been trying to explain it to some people close to me in life, but I can't think of anything to compare. A relatable experience like realising that you're autistic. I think it's quite a difficult one, you know. It's really hard to like find some relatable things, particularly for neurotypicals, to help understand autism. Like, a lot of neurotypicals can perhaps comprehend what like having anxiety will be like, particularly. Maybe ADHD, like related to like the focus things, but autism, it's hard. If I knew Sina, I wouldn't have felt like such an alien. Jeremy Andrew Davis' video on self-diagnosis was crazy good. To really do a review of it, Thomas. Do they create? I think I've seen their Instagram. Do they create long form content? I do suggestions. I'm just not the best with answering my emails. But if you do want to suggest a video, probably the best place is my email. I'm not always the best. Sorry. But I will try. You can't post like links to videos either in chat, which is quite annoying. Thinking you're a dog your whole life and then realizing you've always been a cat. Interesting. Maybe trying to be like an extroverted person all your life and then realizing that you're actually introverted and you're a lot more happier on your own. Maybe. That could be a good one. It was a short video on YouTube. It was mind-boggling.
Again, that's not how autism works. Look, quick pause. I'm going to need a proper brew for this. Remember to hydrate, everyone. Available in the Autistic AF shop. It's also possible that she can look through her life through an autistic lens. Why would looking through your life through an autistic lens be a problem? It's possible that this person is feeling threatened by the fact that she now has a reason for her underlying behaviours that might have previously earned her a label of lazy or stupid without an autism identification or diagnosis.
Traits, yeah.
Being volatile sounds like she's describing meltdowns or emotional differences. It's quite possible that understanding her reality as an autistic person will actually help her to avoid outbursts.
Yes.
It'll give her a reason to change her environment. Now, at high school in the UK, we wear school uniform, and school uniform usually has to be purchased from the school directly or from a single supplier who has a monopoly on the uniform. Don't ask, it's just the way things are in the UK and has been for quite a long while. Now, our school uniform supplier sold trousers for boys that were horribly scratchy and jumpers that had really uncomfortable stitching, really itchy collars, very uncomfortable. Many students tried to get more comfortable trousers from Marks and Spencer. And there was a company making more comfortable jumpers too. But these were treated as contraband. The school would confiscate them off you if take your trousers off you, but the school would tell you that you had to go and get the correct uniform.
Yep.
The moment I got home from school, I would run straight to the bathroom and scrub my hands and arms up to my elbow every single day. A sort of ritual to get rid of the school smell and germs. Now, I don't have to deal with any of these issues anymore. I have a much better emotional response as a result, meaning I can accommodate my so-called deficits and play to my strengths. It's like being able to change the cards that I've been dealt. Not entirely, but swapping out some of the lower cards from a random one from a deck is a deal I will take every time. Back to the thread. She also mentioned that's why she's always late, because of her autism. I get that some people will always be late, but I do personally find it rude if someone's late regardless if they're always late. Again, I told her she can't be completely blamed that on the autism that she isn't yet diagnosed with and needs to accept some responsibility and understand it's her fault half the time.
That's a difficult one. I think a lot of people have a lot of different opinions. This is like a hotly debated one when I talked about like this time blindness video. Don't know if you guys remember it, but man, like, it's a part of executive functioning. It just is. Like, look, can people make adjustments to better make it on time to things? Sure. Is it always going to be on top of things, especially when it's co-occurring with a mental health condition? I don't think so. You know, I think some people, like, it's good to try and be late, and like, if I'm late, I will apologize. I think that's the difference. It's not like I'm blaming it on autism and then saying it's your fault. You know, but I will apologize. Like, I'll just say to be like, oh, I always sort of mess around the time. I'm always like at least 5 minutes late. It's awful. I'm really sorry. It's nothing personal. It just happens to me a lot, you know. But I'll apologize for it because it's my fault. Because I could adjust to help myself in that situation. Could have planned a bit better, but sometimes I can't. It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's really nuanced again, like in this situation. But yeah, I mean, it's part of autism. Like executive dysfunction, it's pretty a solid trait for a lot of people. 100%. Time blindness is real. 100%. Gee, I can relate so much. The uniform shirts at work so scratchy, and as soon as I get home, I get undressed as soon as I pass the door. Well, that's why you see me with my lovely dressing gown on quite often. It's just really great. I try to be early. Yeah, it's just like you try, but it's gonna be hard sometimes, you know. Like especially if you have depression like myself. If my depression is really, really intense at a certain time, I struggle even to I struggle to do anything really. Like I struggle to go downstairs and make myself a cup of water. At least like it can get really, really bad. But it's not always like that, you know. Usually I just have to like take time. I had to take time off work during times that I couldn't make places on time because that was better in the eyes of the company than me turning up late for things. Because I do it. It's something that I've always really, really struggled with, but it's nothing related to my willpower or my dedication or anything like that. It's just sometimes it's just really difficult for me.
Time blindness is often talked about with both autism and ADHD, and it seems to be a common experience. I feel this way too. When I have to be somewhere and need to be on time, it causes me a great deal of stress. I calculate my leaving time from my arrival time, minus my journey time, minus time when I arrive to just sit down in my car if I'm driving after arriving at my destination. It can be a problem, but it can also be managed. It shouldn't be an excuse for being late, but it sounds like the original poster here is saying that maybe if her sister gets a formal diagnosis that she'll believe her, but until that moment, she won't.
So
now, this is a genuine factor, by the way. The original poster is not alone in feeling like this. A formal diagnosis can go a really long way with family members and friends who might not otherwise support your autism identity otherwise. And of course, employers and governments will often at times only accept formal diagnosis for accommodations or support, or even just some understanding. What a time to be alive. After I said what I said to my sister, she ran off crying, and my family started shouting at me, calling me an asshole for getting my sister upset when I know she's autistic. Again, I said she hasn't been diagnosed with autism, so she isn't autistic yet. And
What is wrong with this person? They've got a right stick up their ass about this situation. People are just they get so like wound up, like from people thinking that they're autistic and wanting to get a diagnosis. Why? Just chill out. Relatable content. This come 100%, Ina. Sucks if you can't get paid for the days you miss. Yeah, it's happened to me quite a few times, you know. Sleep, have to go to bed now. My plan is nice. This was an evening. Thomas chat, thank you. Good night. It's good to have you on, Anine. Always a pleasure to have you here. Thomas, my sister did this to me. Oh, it sucks.
Oh my goodness, sorry, it's just... No, that's not how it works. And until she gets a formal diagnosis, I won't say she's autistic. And I said she still needs to accept some responsibility for things that happened, like her being physical and volatile as a kid, by blaming it on her autism. And they are teaching her to be okay.
She was a kid.
To be physical and volatile because she has autism. My family think I've gone too far, and now I'm not on speaking terms with them. Am I the asshole?
Yes.
It does sound to me like the family have generally accepted the sister here, but the posting sibling has not. And yes, the poster has been an asshole by being inconsiderate, rude, and invalidating. Those are asshole traits. It can be quite upsetting. Imagine being referred to by the wrong gender. If someone were referring to me as she, I'd find it funny for a while, but if it were my family and I were living with them 24/7, a one-way joke like this, it would get tiresome and stressful. Now, the other side to that coin is that autistic people can be assholes too. And autism is not a shield. It's a common misconception that autistic individuals are immune to certain traits that are perceived negatively, like being deliberately inconsiderate or rude, the asshole traits. However, autism does not prevent someone from exhibiting these behaviours. It's important to recognise that being autistic does not exempt us from the responsibilities and considerations that come with interacting with others and relationships.
100%. Can't say it better. I mean, autism is an aspect of somebody. It's not all of it, Autistic people are very different, person to person, and that is sometimes due to different autistic traits. Quite often, it's to do with a lot of other stuff too. Personality, socio-political factors, gender identity, lot of different things which sort of encapsulate a human being, To disregard the fact that autistic people can do bad is to infantilize autistic people, Woodshed Fairy, how are you today? It's good to see you. Hey, Claire, would you like to come do a live podcast with me sometime? I've got Mike coming on this Friday, and Neurodivergent possibly next week, and then I've got Megan Neff coming on to do a live stream podcast sometime. Be good to have you as well, if you would be happy to do so. Be about like an hour and a half. That's where the accountability comes in. Well, I've been intentionally rude, but to be fair, they were rude to me. Yeah, I mean, there's nuance to this, isn't it? Like, like if you always see it, it's okay. I love it. I don't know, I'm a woman. Oh, you're a woman. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. I misgendered you before. Totally okay with being referred to a man. It's like a compliment, actually. Interesting. Oh, wow, okay, that sounds like good. Thanks for asking. No worries. Yeah, it'd be lovely. What time zone is Thomas? It's 6 p.m. where you are, Brie? I am. It's currently 2 a.m. in the UK. I'm staying up beyond my bed. It's actually not beyond my bedtime. I usually go to sleep at 3 a.m. Wake up during the midday. It works for me. It's allows me to do my streams and stuff like that. So gives me a bit of a buffer, like at sort of either side of my gym schedule. All of your YouTubes and podcasts are so helpful. Thank you all. Oh, lovely. Yeah, I'll get in touch, Woodshed. On Insta, maybe? We'll try and set something up. 2 a.m. Yes, I know, Brianna. I'm okay though. I am rested.
Other people matter too. Sometimes, whether due to misunderstanding social cues or a different way of interacting, autistic people might come across as blunt or uncaring. But being on the spectrum isn't a free pass to disregard others' feelings either. I tend to find people calling me an asshole when I'm stressed as a consequence of being interrupted when I'm working. Say I'm working on a complicated technical project or writing an email that is taking my entire focus and attention. When I'm pulled out of this by somebody walking behind me and fiddling with things, it can be really disturbing. It stops my flow and completely derails my thought processes. One of the ways I can manage this is to schedule where I have time to work uninterrupted, usually in the evenings or at night. And if there's nobody around when I need to be left alone, I can't be interrupted, and so I can't be considered rude. I also won't be rude. The first video on my channel, which currently is the most popular video on my channel on monotropism, was about this for a reason. Things to avoid. To get this out of the way, it goes without saying that physical space is vital and vitally important, sacred even, to many people. That area
I think
around
there's, there's a degree of nuance there, and I think he's touching on it really well. And that is that just because we're self-advocating for ourselves and being somewhat confrontational in our communication because of something that someone's done to us, sometimes people will call us an asshole for doing that because they don't understand. They don't understand why we have those boundaries. And that's a situation that's happened to me many, many, many times. There is a lot of nuance to that. And, although that might not be considered something which is bad for some people, it is for us, and actually self-advocating and saying no, this is not okay. You're not doing something good, and being direct and advocating for yourself is a good thing. But people may interpret that as being an asshole, you know? It's in the interpretation, though. They don't fully understand the situation. And there's not even something that you need to apologize for either, because it's not an issue for you. Like, it's not your issue. It's their issue. They're encroaching on your boundaries that you've set. That's a them thing, you know? What am I wearing? I'm wearing my Strong, Powerful Autistic hoodie. It's from Born Anxious. You want to go check it out. I feel like I'm plugging a lot of things. By the way, if you are enjoying, please make sure to like, if you would be so kind. It'd be lovely. Possibly subscribe if you enjoy my content.
Shouldn't be intruded on. Keep a respectful distance and don't touch people without consent. Saying, it's just a joke to excuse hurtful comments. Humour that hurts or offends isn't humour to the person on the end of the receiving end. I know that sometimes comedians will use this defence for saying something utterly appalling. For instance, Jimmy Carr or Ricky Gervais have both used this defence on stage. But to their credit, if you enjoy their humour, you will watch or go to one of their shows, and if you don't enjoy their humour, you can change the TV channel or go for a walk. They're not knocking at your door saying these things. However, in real life, people can, and often do, say and act in the most appalling ways to bully or intimidate others, and then pull out the "it's just a joke" defence. That is, to me, evidence that it really isn't. Phrases like, "my autism made me do it," are so dismissive of personal responsibility. It's essential to own your actions and not hide behind a diagnosis or identification.
My autism made me do it. You are autism. Autism is you, you know. It's like, oh my god. Is that in your shop? No, it isn't. I think I have a link to it in my link tree in the description if you want to go check it out. I do like it. It's a good sort of seamless, kind of sensory friendly material, clothing stuff. Oh, it sounds. Oh, you're talking about the podcast, Brie. It will be around 6 p.m. BST. So, 8 hours in the past. My autism acted on its own. Yeah, we are autism. I guess it's okay not knowing if I'm on the spectrum or not. I like this community. Oh, it's lovely to have you on, Leontios. Leontios. Oh my god. Sounds like a form of gaslighting. Which does. What, autism maybe? Yeah. Autism speaks much? What do you mean? I don't think I understand.
Claiming inevitability too with "I can't help it." While certain traits might be harder to manage, it's important to strive for self-improvement and control of our actions. Making emotionally abusive remarks. Words have power, and emotionally charged or abusive statements like insults, gaslighting, or manipulation can cause long-lasting harm or trauma. It's important to communicate with kindness and consideration. What to do when things go wrong. If you find you've crossed a line, it's important to quickly acknowledge the error.
No worries. See you later, Ass. Good to have you on as usual. Hope you're doing alright. Hope you feel better as well. I'll try and get to you on Instagram when I finish. Apologies, I've not been the most communicative at the moment. It's all good among your friends, and most of us are caffeinated up here. Yeah.
And sincerely apologise. Learning from these experiences and adapting your behaviour for future interactions shows personal growth.
Yes.
And respect for others. When possible, make amends through your actions, as these can reinforce your commitment to doing better and healing any rifts that you might have caused from past mistakes. Sure, autistic individuals can be challenging at times, but then again, who isn't? Autism doesn't automatically excuse bad behaviour, and it doesn't mean someone's in the wrong either. We all have a duty to own up to our actions and try and do better, regardless of our neurological makeup. Mull it over and let's catch up on it in the comment section below. So catch you next time, and hey, let's all be a bit nicer to one another. This video has been brought to you by Maisie.
Oh,
Maisie the collie. Hopefully she's more understanding than the sister in that thread. You've got to give this video a watch for reasons why an autistic person might the underemployed, and what can be done about it. The link is right here and on screen. Bye!
Bye. Oh, look at the pooch. Look at the pooch. Oh, you're such a good girl. Who's a good girl? Who's a little cute doggy? Oh my god. Thank you very much to Mike from Autistic AF. Please go check out the video. Give it a like if you have enjoyed that video, because I'm just a streamer and, you know, got to make sure that the people that I react to get some love too. If you haven't subscribed to them, I highly recommend going and checking them out. They do some really great content, and we're going to be talking to them on Friday for the 40 Auti podcast. So we have a little look at Maisie. I want to have another look at Maisie. Let's get my ugly face out of the way. See this beautiful pooch. Yo, look at Maisie. Oh, oh, look at the pooch. Oh, yeah. Oh, I haven't seen Maisie before. Yeah, I like doggies. My big brother's a dog. He's called Bob. He's a beautiful dog. I miss him dearly. I changed my mind. I would like to order 5 Maisies. I do. Do you know what we're going to be talking about on the podcast? We're going to be talking about autism and pets.